I think Torn is one of my favourite foster care memoirs, not just from Rosie Lewis, but in general. And there are two reasons for that. The first is because I think Taylor is fantastic to read about, and I'll talk more about her in a moment. But the second is also because of how unpredictable I think a lot of it is. This was originally released quite a while ago now. It was originally released in 2016. I think I first read it maybe 2019, give or take. Um, and I've just reread it again, and I'd forgotten quite a lot of it. Any of the kind of surprises that came along, I was discovering again for the first time, and I have to say it's rather shocking, but also delightful in the right ways. Rosie is fostering siblings, Taylor and Reece sibling group, and I think Taylor is about 10 if I remember rightly, and Reece is quite a bit younger. Reece is very sweet, but he's very timid, he's very timorous, he's scared of everything, he needs validation with everything, but ultimately he's a lovely boy, and we can see he's kind of easy to care for. Taylor is the antithesis. She is nasty, she is bitter, she is horrible, her behaviour is horrific. She complains about everything. And there's even a point, I don't want to, explain too much, but there isn't a point where Rosie actually has to admit that, not to Taylor, but she admits that she doesn't actually really like Taylor very much. And it's unusual for a foster carer to admit that they can't find any redeeming qualities in a child that they look after, but you can completely see why this would be the case with Taylor. And obviously Rosie has to persevere. And it's just as well that she does, because things begin to come to the surface that are not as they seem. And I'll be honest, it took a direction I was not expecting. Um, they came into care because their parents are seemingly violent. Reece had a slap mark on his leg, and obviously that was under investigation, but their parents are also very violent and volatile, and it seems like they can't keep them safe. But it's also possible that one of the parents is a lot worse than the other. And honestly, it got to the point where I was genuinely concerned for their safety. And I can't really say why, but it wasn't a direction I was expecting. And I will say, I don't ever use this word, but it was nail biting. Genuinely was. And what happens, the first two-thirds of it are really interesting because Taylor's just horrendous. And I just think, what is she going to do next? And there's one thing that she does. She destroys something of Rosie's, and you'll know exactly which bit it is. And I genuinely wanted to slap her. Taylor, that is. Because what she did was unforgivable. And it's just so gripping because it's horrendous. And then about the two-thirds in, which is usually the point in a foster care memoir where the tides change and we begin to learn more about either the child or why they're behaving a certain way. And that's definitely what we get with Taylor, but it was not what I was expecting at all. And it is just so fascinating, but also very eye-opening, and quite frustrating as well, and particularly from the perspective of Taylor's mother. But I can't say any more than that. As I said, I think it is one of my favourite foster care memoirs. I've read over 50 of them, maybe over 60 now, and I really thoroughly enjoyed it. If you have never read anything by Rosie Lewis before, it is as good a place to start as any. If you've never read any foster care or memoirs, again, definitely a good place to start. It will hook you in. It's compelling, it's gripping, it's very well written. From an entertainment perspective, the highs and the lows are all in the right places. The character development flows at a rate that's very predictable and very believable. Rosie as a character, if you like, because although it's a memoir, Rosie is we follow her journey as if reading a character's story. She's a very likable foster carer, a very likable person. And this, because of her honesty, I think is definitely the case here, even more so. Torn is absolutely brilliant and thoroughly worth reading.